Hello and welcome to this special episode of the Icelandic Formula Offroad. Today we will be looking at the history of this incredible motorsport.
I think it's 55 years next year since the first race was held in Iceland, and that was basically just original or standard Jeeps. And if you had a Jeep with a with a six-cylinder or V8, you were a winner. And but the tires was pretty much the same as came with the car.
And the first events, I mean, that was just unmodified cars, Jeeps and Willises and whatever you call it.
Roll bars, safety belts, helmets, or all the safety gear we have today was unknown completely. The idea of safety gear was not even born.
It starts with some old Willis Jeeps, and it always things. The bigger engines and better tires. And
right in the beginning, the sport hit the Icelanders, and they got a lot of publics to watching the sport, and that has been all the years. The sport has, of course, grown, and the car has been more powerful, the bigger tires, and the safety gears there.
Then, of course, it got more competitive, and they put the paddle tires on, and they changed the rules for more safety, so they needed to build some cages around the drivers, and that is good.
In 1989, a new revolutionary truck appeared in the Formula Offroad scene. The owner, Árni Kópsson, combined what he thought were the best ideas at the time into one truck, specially made for Formula Offroad.
it was around 1990 that Árni did start to build the Heimasætan.
Árni Kópsson came up with steering and even longer car, and sitting in the center of the car with just minimal body on the car, saving weights, and that was a big revolution. Suddenly we saw the cars drive something we couldn't imagine was possible.
There is a track next to my hometown that I used to go to a lot growing up, and back then, I'm not saying that I'm old, but back then it was, the buggies were different. I mean, these were more, you would take a car or a Jeep and you would change it.
It did probably change a lot around 2000 when the Musso was built.
Another big evolution of the Formula Offroad truck came in 1999 when Haraldur Pétursson, a then three-time champion, built the Musso, the truck we know today as Thor. It revolutionized the sport. It has won 16 titles with 4 different drivers. The design of the truck was so good that the blueprints are still being used today to build trucks like Hekla and Guttin Reborn.
Now the cars are all custom built, and every car has a bigger engine. Now everybody have like LS engine.
Over time, it just changed a little bit. Cars were more powerful, and the nitrous gas came in, and the turbos, and I'm talking about things I don't really know, but they have a lot of power, so they're going to need a lot of structure, and I think also the safety factor is getting really big over here.
When I was starting, no car have a turbo. Now a lot of cars have turbo, and also the superchargers. So we are getting more in the future, I think.
Now we have cars up to 1600 horsepower. Very common is between 800 and 1000.
I think the changes is more craziness with more safety. I don't know if that goes hand in hand.
We don't know where we will end. The sky is the limit, and the sport is always growing into something. We have seen double backflip. Next will be triple backflip. I don't know.
With a sport as spectacular as Formula Offroad, understandably, other countries were already starting to take notice of this unique Icelandic sport.
In 1990, I think we took 10 or 12 cars over to Sweden. The idea was mainly just showing the Swedes what we are doing. They have already been here watching what we were doing. There was a lot of interest in Sweden for building up the sport there, which they did. The Formula Offroad was big in Sweden for a while. But like everything else, it goes in waves. It goes up and it goes down. And now it's on the bottom and it's starting to build up again in Sweden.
The Scandinavian events, I mean, Sweden and Norway, they have similar races. Pretty much the same rules, pretty much the same buggies.
I moved to Norway in '97, and I was lucky enough to be there when in the beginning when the sport started to build up in Norway. And we have seen a lot of good cars coming from Norway and good drivers as well.
It was pretty much a given that we would go and compete there, and we would do a Scandinavian event and compete like a World Series in the Formula Offroad or whatever. But they're doing good. I mean, the Icelandic drivers have been doing really good abroad, and it's different. The tracks, of course, are different from every event here in Iceland.
Conditions in Norway and Iceland are very different. In Norway, they are much higher. Like in Iceland, it's not very high, but it can be very steep and can be a lot of turnings. So that's much different in Iceland and Norway.
But then you go abroad and you have these big hills with loose sand and stuff like that. It's a challenge for our drivers to see how to do these tracks.
In Norway, it's a lot of sand and not so much stones. In Iceland, it can be a lot of stones and everything, what can damage a lot.
In 2016, we brought the sport to US and Tennessee, Dyersburg, Tennessee.
What we are trying to do with the Icelandic Formula Offroad in America is just broadening or just widening our sights for the sport, and we love it in America. I mean, these guys that are competing in the Icelandic Formula Offroad, they are rednecks, let's face it. So they feel right at home in the South.
It's a redneck sport. We are proud to be a rednecks. And coming to Tennessee was like coming home. It's just how it is.
It's a crazy sport. It's filled with adrenalines and energy, and this is a popular sport like the monster trucks. That's a popular sport in America, and all these crazy driving. I mean, the NASCAR and the derbies and all that. So I think the Formula Offroad would feel right at home, and I think the spectators in America would deeply appreciate what we are doing.
Although Formula Offroad is very spectacular with its incredible climbs and extreme crashes, the competition for first place is just as exciting. Here is a quick rundown of how the drivers are given points for each course and how the penalty system works. Each race consists of 6 to 8 tracks, including at least one time attack. We will get to those in a minute. A normal track is not timed, but if a car has been stopped for over a minute, it will be black flagged, meaning that it cannot continue. The tracks vary in length and the number of gates. The minimum amount of gates in a track is 3, however normally there will be 5 to 8 gates. 3 gates very rarely shown. Before each race, the drivers go on a track inspection where they try to figure out the best way through the course. This is done walking. For finishing a track, a driver is rewarded with 350 points, and this is the golden number. Everybody wants to get 350 points. However, for overcoming each hindrance, the drivers can get a certain amount of points. For instance, the first gate usually gives 100 points, but this can vary between tracks and the number of gates. For getting just one front wheel through the final gate, the driver gets 250 points, so 100 less than the full 350. This is to give drivers the incentive to try to go all the way. If the back wheels make it through, 300 points are awarded. It is only if a driver manages to drive away full 350 points are awarded. Now we get into the penalty points, and for touching a marker, and this is only a touch in a gate, a driver gets 20 penalty points. However, driving over a marker gives 40 penalty points, and if only one wheel goes through the gate, the driver gets 80 penalty points, and this will all be deducted from the length points given. 10 penalty points are given if a driver stops, and 40 if the driver reverses. The time attack rules are slightly different. As the name suggests, the drivers are on the clock, with the fastest driver being rewarded 350 points. For each tenth of a second you are slower than the fastest time, you lose 1 point. And during the time attacks, of course, you can get penalty points as well. For touching a marker, a driver gets 10 penalty points, no matter how he touches it. No penalties are given for stopping or reversing, other than the time lost in the process.
For me, it's a challenge. You have one chance. You have the hill, and you're supposed to drive the hill. And you're not able to rig or start again, or you just have to go for it. And you have to pick up a right speed. You have to pick up everything right to succeed. If you fail, well, you fail.
No, I don't get scared. A little bit stressed sometimes, and I always try to be relaxed and thinking, not thinking too much. Think a little bit, not too much.
Of course, you need to be a little bit crazy to drive a car like this. Sometimes the tracks are very scary, but you have to think you always can go up.
It's so strange. You are maybe in the car, you see the big hill, and you thinking how the hell I can go there up, and you just look at it and you just throw it and thinking, oh shit, did I make it, did I not? So maybe you just roll over and coming down and see, whoa. And maybe you're going up, and then it's crazy.
Sometimes you think it is not possible to go there, but then you go and you go up.
Yeah, I think it's not a good idea to use the brain too much in this sport.
It would surprise you that most of these guys are pretty quiet and just relaxed when they're not in their buggies, and just friendly dudes that you wouldn't think have that wild beast inside them, but then when they get behind the wheel, they go berserk.
When you put the helmet on, it's like you turn off your brain. You just think to drive and go finish the track. When you're driving a Formula Offroad car, it's a lot of adrenaline. What is going on? You're always learning how to drive, how the car works, and to feel the car.
It would surprise you how technical and how much math is involved in this. I mean, these guys are rednecks, and they probably didn't do well at school. I don't know, I'm just saying like that, but there's a lot of calculation going on because the rules are strict. You can go here, but you can do one back up, and you have to do the distance of the truck, and should I take this stick in the gate for this, how many penalties, or should I back up? So they constantly have to be thinking. So there's a lot more than meets the eye that is going on in the buggy and within the racer during the track.
You need to be able to read each track and choose which way is the best.
But it's not only the action in the hills that excites people.
It's a really fun atmosphere in the pits because everybody helps out, even though they are competing. This is one big family.
It's just like a big family. We have one which is always making problems. We have one which is always nice. We have one which is always keeping a mouth shut, and one other one who is always talking. And it's just how it is.
What joins us is the friendship, and I want to say love. I mean, there is a lot of love in the Icelandic Formula Offroad. Just take a look at any of the award ceremonies here on YouTube or whatever you want to find it, and you're going to see a lot of love, man love. And I just love it because people are different. But of course we have the crazy dudes that cannot sit still and want to be driving their buggies all the time. And if they're not in the buggy, they're on the side-by-side or the 4x4 or whatever you call it, and up the hills and whatnot, and running up and down the hills, and crazy dudes.
The Formula Offroad is like big family.
I mean, they just want to help each other out. If this one has a broken crankshaft or whatever it's called, I don't know the front or back of a tire, but that doesn't matter. So everybody comes together to get the car ready because they want to compete and they want everybody to participate. And
I think it has been like that all the time. I don't remember anything else. You know, I want to beat the guys in the hills, and everybody wants to beat me in the hills. If that means, you know, I have to loan him something of spare parts, well, I do that. And the same the other way around.
It's amazing how the other teams are always working together. If you have some problem, you can always talk to the next guy, and he always wants to help you.
Everybody's friends, everybody helping each other. Something broke in my car, I can have it for maybe Thor and Atli, and if they broke, they can come to me. We are all helping each other.
It's a lot of fun, and then of course after the event, we usually offer spectators to come into the pits and meet the teams. It's a meet and greet, and over the last few seasons, they've been coming up, the teams, with posters and glasses with their signatures on it and stuff like that, so that kids will get it. I mean, who hasn't had a poster of a Ferrari or whatever in their rooms? Every kid in Iceland have had the posters from these guys in the past, these legendary cars and drivers. So the atmosphere is unbelievable. This is not scripted. This is just pure insanity going on. And these guys, they breathe and live gasoline and nitrous gas. So I think this could be a really big TV mania. Just having these guys doing what they do best. And of course, I mean, we have stunts in just recently that haven't even been done in any other motorsport. But seeing that we are a little bit closed off here and we haven't covered it maybe abroad, but I think the world is waking up now, and they see the potential for this kind of sport because it's a spectator sport.
People like to see the action, they like to hear the noise from the engine, and they like to see cars rolling over.
The Formula Offroad is an amazing sport. It's not only fun to drive, it's always fun to watch.
So to sum up, Formula Offroad would be a group of crazy guys that come together to do crazy stunts, and somewhere within the total craziness, we have something of a competition where we find somebody that wins something.